everyone, and welcome to another lesson, and this one today is on percentages. So let's get started. So a percentage is really, when we say percentage, we are saying per 100. Okay? This is what we're saying, meaning when we say percent. So per, you see that there, per cent to 100. Okay. Another thing to remember with percents is that our percentage sign is shown as this, or like that, kind of however you would like to draw it, but it is one of those. Now, if I were to show you something like 1%, this actually means 1 per 100. 1 per 100. Okay? If we had 100%, this means all. So 100% of 60 is actually just 60 because it's all of it. It's the whole of what we're looking at. 50% then means half. So half of 60 is 30. So 30 out of 60 would be 50%. If we were to look at something like 5%, this means 5 out of 100. And that is because, like we said above, percent, this thing here, means per 100. So that's why we're putting it over 100 here. So then if we were to look at 75%, what 5% really is 75 per 100 per 100. Or we can also say 75 parts out of 100. Okay? And then the last thing I kind of want to talk about here is 200%. This is really just 2. Because it'd be 200 per 100%. In 200, again, if this is a division sign, 200 divided by 100 is really just 2. So next we're going to talk about expressing a decimal number as a percent. So a decimal to a percent. Okay, so to convert from decimal to percent, we're going to multiply by 100. Because again, percent, parts per 100. So an easy way to do this multiplication is just by moving a decimal two places to the right. 1, 2. Okay. After we move the decimal 2 places to the right, the next step we're going to do is add the percent symbol in. And then the third step we would do here is add any zeros if we need them. Okay? So, our first example here is that we want to take 0.125 and we want to express it as a percent. So, the first step I said, we're going to move the decimal place to the right 2 spaces. 1, 2, Okay, so that gives us 12.5. The second step is to take that answer and add on our percentage sign. And the third step is to add any zeros. And we don't have any zeros to add, so our final answer is 12.5%. Again, don't forget to add in this percentage sign. Without that, 12.5, 12.5 what? This is 12.5%, okay? That's the only way that it makes sense to take this decimal number and make it look like 12.5. So we need to make sure that we're including that percent sign. So we'll go over a couple more examples here. If I have 0.5 and I want to express it as a percent, this is 50 over 100. And why is it 50 over 100? That is because if we step aside here, 0.5, we're going to move that decimal place 1, 2 spaces, so it becomes 5, 0. Because this is a 0 here. We add that percent. And really we already added our zeros, so I guess in this case we could do step 3 before step 2. Okay, so then 50 over 100, well, we've talked about that before, and up here we discussed how 50% of 100 is half, which is 50% again, which again can be shown as 50 over 100. So this is equal to 50%. The next example we're going to look at is changing 1.25 to a percent. Again, we're going to use the same steps here. So for first, we're going to take 1.25 and we're going to move that decimal 2 spaces. I have no zeros to add, so maybe I'll switch this to zeros, which we have none of, and then 3 to add in that percent sign, so it's 125%. Okay, one more example before we move on. I want to take 0.335 and I want that in a percentage. Okay, so same steps here, except I'm going to condense them. 1, 2. I don't need any zeros because there's nothing here, and there's something here and something here, which means that I don't need any zeros. So this is then going to give me 33.5 and add that percent sign. So 33.5%. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how we would express a percentage as a decimal number. So I guess the first thing to talk about here is a percent can be expressed as a decimal. Just like as we saw above, a decimal could be turned into a percent. Okay, so what do we do here? Well, we know already from above that if I have 50%, this is also equivalent to 0.5, which is also equivalent to 1 over 2. Okay, and another example is I know that 25% is equivalent to 0.25, which is equivalent to 1 over 4. Now looking at these two examples, we can come up with some steps. So our first step is going to be divide by 100 and remove our percent sign. Now, a sub piece under this rule is that an easy way to divide by 100 is to move the decimal 2 places to the left instead of the right. So when we went from decimal to percent, we moved to the right, but when we move from percent to decimal, we move 2 to the left. Okay? So if we use these two, or this, I guess, one step here, it would look something like, using this example, so I have 50%, and first I want to divide by 100, or move the decimal place from here, 1, 2, there's going to be my decimal, so that gives me an answer of 0.5, because I have to add that 0 in front. Okay. And then the second half of this step is to get rid of this percent sign. So that ends us with just 0.5. And again, we can do the same thing for 25%. We know what it should look like, so this can just double check our answer. So I have 25%. And if I move my decimal from here, 1, 2 spaces to the left, it ends up here. I'm going to add a 0 in front of it. So that gives me 0.25%. But the second step says get rid of that percent. So then I end up with just 0.25. Okay, perfect. So now we can kind of speed up that process a little bit. And we can do a couple more examples. So next I have 89%. And just to show a different way for this time, what this is, again, if we remember, percent means per 100. So I can write this as 89 per 100. And if I divide this by just using this as a division sign, then I get an answer of 0.89. Now this is the same as going 89, move that decimal 2 spaces, add the 0, which gives me 0.89. So we can use this with our calculator to find an answer a little bit faster. Another example, we want 112% in decimal form. Okay, so for this one, I know that this is 112 per 100, but I also know that it might be easier without getting my calculator to just move that decimal quick. So I move it 1, 2 spaces, which gives me an answer of 1.12%, but don't forget that second step. We get rid of that percent and we end up with an answer of just 1.12. Now we can think about if this makes sense. So how do I do that? Well, I go over back to this equation here. So I know 100 is going to go into 112 once. So 112 minus 100 is equal to 12. Okay, so I have a remainder of 12. So then I have 1 and 12 out of 100, which again, if we were just to move the decimal 2 places, we'd get 0.12, and if we add those two together, I get 1 plus 0.12, which again gives me not 0, gives me 1.12, which is equivalent to what we got this way. So that's one way we can also go about finding the answer. Another example here, 23% to a decimal. Okay, I'm going to speed the process up a little bit, and I'm going to quickly move that decimal over, add it here, and add a 0. going to immediately remember to drop the percent sign, so I end up with an answer of 0.23. And then our last example here is I want 245% turned into a decimal. And again, I'm just going to go about this by moving my decimal 2 spaces to the left, and that gives me an answer, remembering to drop my percent sign, of 2.45. And again, does this make sense? 245 over 100. Well, 100 times 2 is 200. Remembering that we get a remainder of 45, and if we move that decimal space, 0.45, which gives us 2.45, just like above. Perfect. Okay, so now we're going to move on to expressing a fraction, so a over b, for example, as a percent. Okay, so where have we seen this before? Well, maybe you've seen this on a test where you've gotten 22 out of 23 correct. So you've seen it like that. Or maybe you've seen it on measuring cups where you have a 3/4 cup. Okay, so that's turning the fraction. We want to know, maybe, if this is your exam mark, maybe you want to know what the percentage you got was on that exam. So this is how we can find that. So to convert a fraction to a percentage, we're going to first divide. If I'm looking at this above here, I'm going to divide a by b, and then step 2 is going to multiply by 100. Or I guess 100% to be a little bit more specific, to make sure we get that percentage sign there. Okay? We could also, so that's part, we'll call this maybe A. The other choice to do this is to take A over B and immediately multiply it by 100%. Or just 100 in this case. So then, what we would do is we'd have A times 100 divided by B. Now we'd do our division, and then step 3 would be to add the percent sign on at the end. So for the next couple of examples, I'm going to use both ways. Again though, this is going to be the way you do it. Choose to do it will be your own preference. It's going to be up to you. Okay, so I want 3/8 to a percentage. Okay? So the first way, I know 3 divided by 8 is equal to 0.375, and then I can take 0.375 and I can multiply it by 100%. Again, multiplying by 100 is just moving that decimal point 2 places to the right. So we end up with 37.5, but we multiplied it by a percent, so we have that percentage sign as well. The second way we can do this is by taking 3 over 8 and multiplying it by 100, which gives us 300 over 8. And if we take the division of this statement now, we get an answer of 37.5. And then to get our final answer, we add on that percent. So I get 37.5%. And again, notice we get the same answer. So either way is going to work for us. Our next example is going to be 5 over 9 to a percent. Now again, doing it the first way, 5 over 9 is equal to 5556, if we multiply that by 100%, take that decimal and move it twice, and we get an answer of 55.56%. Second way being 5/9 times 100 is equal to 500/9, which is equal to 55.56, and if we add on the percentage, we get 55.56%. Another example, 12/7 to a percentage. Okay, so again, we're going to do both ways here. 12/7 is equal to 1.7143, and if I multiply that by 100%, I get an answer of, move this twice, 171.43%. And does this make sense? Well, we can look back and we know that 7 goes into 12 once with a remainder of 5. Okay, so that means that it'll be 100 and something percent. We get 171, so we can assume that is at least close. Doing it the second way though, 12/7 times 100 is equal to 1200/7, which is equal to, not 6, 171.43. And lastly, we add on the percentage, and that is our answer. Again, noticing how they're both the same. So our last example in this portion is going to be 2/3. Maybe pause the video, do it whatever way you would like to. I'm going to do it my favorite way, and then we can compare answers. 2%. So the way I'm going to do it is the first way. So I'm going to go 2/3 is equal to 0.6667 times 100%. I'm going to move my decimal twice to the right, and I get an answer of 66.67%. Awesome. So the next thing we're going to discuss is finding the percentage of a given number. Finding percentage of given number. Okay.